But anyway, so I'll talk a little bit about connected cars. So Zubie is a connected car company founded about 3 years ago. Interestingly, was a spin out of Best Buy, which I led from a technology group within Best Buy that spun out into an independent company to specifically focus on the connected car and the consumer value proposition around connected car, as well as enterprise and a few other areas that our business has evolved to. So we're going to talk about connected car on a couple of different angles today. So the overall market opportunity, which as in many IoT spaces is massive, but in connected car there's kind of several different segments that encompass the overall connected car opportunity, both embedded vehicles that already have connectivity in them, as well as vehicles that do not have connectivity in them, which is the bulk of the vehicles on the road, and how both are being approached from a market perspective, and then also how Zubie is approaching that. We'll talk a little bit about some of the opportunities and challenges as we've evolved the overall product and solution offering, and then also talk about where we're going with the product and also the platform. As with many IoT companies, this is still early days, and the end applications, and I say plural applications, are still being evolved, and not all of them will be done by product companies like ourselves, but also by many ecosystem providers. So we have some API access coming shortly that I'll talk about here as well. So the opportunity. So VCs love this, right? Massive market opportunity, very underpenetrated. So billions, hundreds of billions of dollars spent annually on vehicles, and you just think about your own personal lives. When you look at the cost of a vehicle, maintain it, gas, oil, et cetera, vehicles are a big portion of consumers' income that goes into that. And then there's a massive amount of vehicles on the road and more going out every day. So over 1 billion cars on the road today. Obviously, global distribution. The U.S. has a very nice market size, but significant opportunities and a lot of growth, particularly in South America, on vehicles on the road. And the majority of vehicles are not connected. So with the big exception of GM with the OnStar service that's been out there for quite some time, the bulk of the other vehicles on the road are not connected. It is absolutely true that more and more vehicles are being connected every year, but still in cars coming off manufacturing lines today, many of them do not have connectivity. That is obviously going to change over time and is changing, but if you take a snapshot today, there's still as many vehicles that are not connected. But that kind of leads to this ecosystem of some portion of the vehicles having embedded connectivity in the market and some not. It was similar to the comment from the INRIX CEO talking about, as new cars have vehicle-to-vehicle connectivity, that really only works when both of them have that technology to enable that application. So what do we do as this market kind of evolves? Well, first you got to understand the different segments of connectivity within a vehicle. So embedded connectivity, which basically means there's a cellular module inside of a vehicle. So GM OnStar led that initiative, really around safety and security aspects. So response in a crash, having connectivity to call for help. Early on they had concierge services, and navigation services that are less critical today, but still part of the overall solution. And then many other manufacturers. I mean, Mercedes has had connectivity in vehicles for well over a decade, and many more vehicles are having embedded connectivity. Now it's cost to the car, right? The cellular modules are not inexpensive. And then there's cost to the cellular carrier. So some value has to exist there for that connectivity to be there. In higher end cars, it's just landing there. Where that moves into mainstream, there's got to be enough of a value prop, either from a data collection perspective or from a customer value perspective, for the OEM to justify putting that module in the vehicle. And there's lots of new business models evolving around that. The OEM's typical approach here of taking pretty high price points, the embedded connectivity service you'll pay for $20+ a month for most OEMs. So even that has limited adoption at this point. The second approach, mainly driven by Ford, has been the Ford Sync and the idea of using Bluetooth connectivity. So no cellular module within the car, but leverage the consumer's phone connectivity to tie in the vehicle and be able to do some subset of the overall applications that a full embedded solution has done. Not playing out ideally, I think. It's still evolving. It's still evolving, and Ford has a number of strategies around that area, but an interesting approach using kind of a couple of pieces of technology. And then there's the OBD. OBD stands for Onboard Diagnostic. So I don't know if this is common knowledge or not in this room, but from 1996 forward, an onboard diagnostic port is legally required in all vehicles in the United States, and also required in many other countries as well. This was really for emissions purposes. So it's a little port underneath the steering column of your vehicle. And if it's 96 or newer, you will find it on your car. Can be in a couple of different locations, but generally under the steering column. And that was meant for mechanics to be able to plug into your car to do quick and easy emissions testings for your vehicle. That port has been there for quite some time. It's been more recently that companies like ourselves and others have leveraged that port for access not only to power, so it powers off the vehicle, off of one of the pins, but also access to the car's ECU, or electronic control unit. So you can actually listen and or talk to the vehicle through that port. So not the original intention of the port, but actually has been really valuable in creating a lot of extra functionality off the vehicle using an interface that was existing for a different reason. So looking at the overall footprint of vehicles, so about 1 billion cars overall on the road today, almost half of those have an OBD port on them. But over time, the percentages will match to basically the car population. But aftermarket still, you're talking 500 million vehicles that have an OBD port and a very, very low market penetration of OBD devices today. So massive opportunity for growth in the industry. There we go. So how do these little devices get into cars? And I'll talk a little bit more in a moment about what these devices actually do. But looking, at billion, let's just call it half a billion vehicles that have the opportunity to get this aftermarket connectivity, how are they going to get out into the marketplace? So there's a variety of distribution channels, some earlier than others. I'll talk through them relatively briefly here, but wireless carriers. So this one's a pretty simple business model. Everybody has a cell phone, right? There's only so many more cell phones that they can connect to. Wireless carriers love Internet of Things because it creates more devices that they can tie into your rate plan, that then you can drive more data usage, which is how wireless carriers make money. So that's where you're seeing the carriers push into mobile hotspots and tablets and other connected devices and all the interesting devices of some of the companies here today. Connected car is the next big thing for most of these carriers. So basically, industry-wide, most of the wireless carriers are attempting some flavor or another of connected car and have some device and ecosystem strategy to drive into those connected vehicles with a variety of different features, and all are taking a slightly different approach. We launched with a couple of wireless carriers. Wireless carriers bring massive distribution. They bring a kind of a known quantity in the cellular business model. They have the ability to potentially tie it onto your rate plan and such. We had a major deployment with an international wireless firm called Telefonica in Germany last year, where they are selling throughout Germany through their 1,000+ wireless stores. It's a good way to distribute this type of technology because it kind of fits within that business model. Another major channel, I think, for this product is going to be automotive dealers. So it's really interesting as you talk to automotive dealers and shops. A large part of their service, their revenue or margin in their business model is related to service. They want to get you back into service your vehicle. And while it's under warranty, they have pretty high retention rates. As soon as you go out of warranty, natural human behavior, you're going to go potentially to the shop down the road versus going to the dealership and maybe pay more. They want to know what's going on with the vehicles and drive customers back into their shops to get them repaired. So there's tremendous value with what we can pull off of a device like this and drive those customers and drive behavior into the dealerships. A very simple example, everybody gets spammed with oil change coupons in the mail, but they almost never arrive when you actually need to get an oil change because they have no idea how many miles you've driven on the car. So they have smart metrics that says the average person drives 3,000 miles over 3 months, but they really don't know. Whereas with this type of technology, that coupon can land in your mailbox the day you hit 3,000 miles or 5,000 miles or whatever your car requires. So much more smarter and specific marketing around maintenance, around repair, and basically having the auto dealers become front of mind to the consumer when different events happen. Another major channel for these type of devices is insurance, and UBI, or usage-based insurance, is growing in popularity, being driven by the larger carriers. The most vocal from a marketing perspective is Progressive with their Snapshot device. But same basic idea, using an OBD-type device that plugs into vehicles and extracts data, and then uses that data, uses that data for a specific purpose, in this case, insurance underwriting. And we see really a holistic movement in the insurance industry to collect that data. Now, the insurance carriers don't care where the data comes from. If it came from an embedded system, that's great. If it came from aftermarket, also fine. They just want the data, and they're able to use that data to improve their underwriting to drive their business model from this piece. The last big one I'll mention is really home automation. I know there's some companies here dealing with that. The connected car marketplace and the connected home marketplace have a lot of things in common. Excuse me. And integrating those two together into cohesive value proposition, which becomes the consumer's connected life, we believe is where the market is going. We partnered very early on with iControl, which is an industry leader, and then specifically with Smart Home Ventures, and we'll partner with others around a combined solution where in one user interface you can actually control and view both your connected car and your connected home experience into one cohesive customer experience, and definitely see more and more of that coming in the Internet of Things, whether it's wearables or other devices, all that coming together to lead to a very simple customer value proposition where everything can be managed. And that's been talked about for as long as I can remember. I think now we finally see with cloud-based systems, talking to cloud-based systems, it's actually integrating and coming together in a pretty seamless, cost-effective way, which will benefit the end consumer significantly. All right. So a little bit about the Zubie solution here, just briefly. So we have a device that plugs into your vehicle, a device that we design, manufacture, and ensure security on. That device talks over cellular communication towers to our cloud infrastructure, and that's where all of our data processing and analytics happens. And then that gets relayed into a mobile and web experience for the consumer, iOS, Android, of course, a web browser view for the consumer to see what's going on with their vehicle in a number of different ways. Behind the scenes, we have a very powerful back-end system, communicates via APIs to our front-end system that really powers the solution that drive the analytics and metrics that the consumer sees on a real-time basis as they're driving their vehicle and operating their vehicle or monitoring their vehicle. So bringing that to life a little bit more, so we have a live map tracking, which is pretty typical. Within our solution, we track both the vehicle and the phone, so you can see where somebody is physically with their phone location as well as where they are with their car location. There's kind of interesting things as you put those databases together. Standard things around proximity alerts, geofence alerts, the customer gets near their home or their work, et cetera, and an alert will be triggered. Log all the information so you can track trip by trip, how you drive, where you drove. Lots of really interesting applications. I'm just sharing a few here that really drive engagement and value to the consumer. Because we're talking to the OBD port, we have access to the car's computer system, and we can get a subset of the information that's going on within the vehicle. We can translate engine codes for you, so your engine light comes on. Nobody knows what that means other than there's something wrong with my car. Could be something very simple, like you left your gas cap off, or it could be something major repair that you shouldn't be driving your vehicle. And the biggest consumer problem is you just don't know. So what we do is we pull that code, we translate the code, tell you what it is, tell you if it's severe or minor, and actually give you an estimated cost to fix it. The interesting thing about that from an IoT perspective, all we know is the code. We pull off, P108, we pull that code. We hit other databases, via API, cloud databases, to pull that information together of how severe it is, what it's going to cost to fix it, and then we relay that to the customer. So pulling one simple, data point off the car knows, but the car translates it in a red engine light. Here we translate it, and we take that, hit a couple other databases, and bring to life a very valuable customer experience that you don't need to go to the shop to know what that engine light means and give you some alert on where you're going. Other key point I'll mention here briefly is battery alerts. Interesting stat, almost 50% of breakdowns in cars are battery related. Cold weather related or just battery life related. Most batteries last about 3 years. And we constantly monitor the battery voltage. So we can see long before your battery dies if your battery is declining and basically alert you to replace your battery before it becomes a breakdown, which again, a very valuable component to the consumer. And then rounding out here, so open platform. As I said at the beginning, the Internet of Things is still evolving, as I think you guys all know. We have lots of great ideas, and we're implementing many of them into our application, but that's just the beginning. And we believe there's a lot of integration across the ecosystem that is far too big for us to handle on our own. So we've been very open in our integration. We've integrated with a couple of partners to beginning with, so probably you're familiar with if this then that, or IFT. So we're integrated with IFT today, and you can connect lots of your connected home components via recipes on IFT today. We don't do any of the integration. We're integrated with IFT, and the rest can happen directly at the consumer level. And then we also have a developer API, which we're opening up to the public here in the next month or so, where we've already done some specific deployments with partners, as I've listed on here, in the connected home space. But this will allow consumers to more tech-savvy or programmer consumers directly integrate with our API based on standards that are industry standards in the API world. So lots of information there I just ran through, but generally speaking, kind of to wrap up, the connected car is a very exciting space, massive market potential, moving very quickly, and we're a component of the ecosystem trying to drive the technology and platform integration really across the IoT but driven from the connected car perspective.